Hey, howdy, hey, folks. It is Mrs. Johnson, the Agri Wisdom channel. We are talking about my garden for the spring of 26. Once again, is the middle of October, and I did a little more updating to my Excel spreadsheet for the year. Um, for those of you who are a little out of touch, I work at a hardware store, and we pulled seeds off the shelf in September and has bonus perks of working there. I got to take home whatever seeds that I wanted because we were just going to send them back to the company so they could get rid of them. So I took some home. In fact, I took all the listed things home. Um, and so I've been planning that so I can do a garden in the spring on the family homestead, which will be the first garden on the family homestead in several years. Um, Minus the fruit trees and the flowers and things that the rest of my family does. Um, and so I did some stuff, and let's talk about it. Um, First things first, I'm gonna pin some cells. I don't know if I've shown you all how to do that. So if we go view, we can, freeze panels. And we can freeze the first column. And what that does is I can tab over however much I want in that first column. Column A stays within view. And so that little freeze panes in that section or in the view section is quite useful when it comes to handling things that have lots and lots of spaces in them. Rows, columns, organization, like this one does. So then I can move over here and still see all the stuff that I need to see. Without further ado, let's talk about some of the stuff that I did in the last couple weeks. So, I collected all the information from the seed packets, and then I used the internet to find out how many seeds I should have in said packets that I brought home. Um, and I did that by using Excel functions to multiply things. And then I did a rough estimate of how many plants I wanted in the last video. And I was like, yeah, 50 spinach plants should be enough. Now I've grown all of these things or things very similar to these breeds, cultivars, enough that I know about how much I would eat in a given season. A lot of that takes practice. If you're not sure, we'll do yield estimates at some point because that's important. I should actually add a row in this just to show you guys. So maybe I do that at some point. Um, and then I did some true false functions last week to find out whether or not I had enough seeds for what I wanted. And so this row just compares my ideal plants to how many seeds I actually brought home from the hardware store. What I did add, though, is these. Oh, highlight them. Those. Everything after. No. I added like the successions list here, and then like this column here, column T. I also added. And so what exactly did I do? Oh, and these down here. I added these because I finally updated my map. I'll show you my map this week too. But a lot of the stuff that you see is actually broken up into successions. And if we go back to sort and filter, I can sort custom sort. We will sort by successions and then species. Great. So then, now that I've done that, let me move my little screen there. Now that I've done that, you can see that all of my succession, all my single successions are in one spot. Now, for those of us who don't know what a succession is, succession planting is planting several iterations of the same crop throughout the year. So, like, if I plant, like, the carrots are a good example, right? I have 4 successions of that. So, what does that mean? That means that I would start some carrots in May and I would harvest them, a couple months later, month, 2 months later, and then I'd start another set in July and then harvest those. And then I'd start another set of seeds in August and another set of seeds in September. And so I end up getting several harvests of carrots because I started several groups of carrots at different times throughout the season. Now, why is that helpful or useful? That is helpful or useful because if, right, carrots take days to harvest, 75 a month, right? Cool. I can start those a couple weeks apart, have carrots for most of the summer, next summer. Let's see, lettuce, right? You'll see that a lot of my lettuces and kales and things have 2 successions. Why is that? Because I'm growing a lot of cutting greens, and cutting greens has to mature. They get mature enough at some point to get bitter and stop growing, and they just don't produce as well once they get past a certain age. So, hence the 2 successions, at least. So then I can have good tasting lettuce all year. And then, again, comes with practice and planning. And we'll talk about what goes into that planning. I have a video on kind of planning that on the calendar year in the gardening basics. But let's talk about seeds per succession. What made me choose some of these numbers, right? Obviously, for the ones that have 1 planting, 1 succession of gardening, they either have a really long season, so like the corn, 70 days, tomatoes, 80 days, right? Bush beans, 55. It's not a long season per se. It is long for where I live, but they're beans, and beans store easy, so I don't really need more than 1 succession because I can save seeds really well or save beans really well. But spinach can't save spinach that well. It doesn't last in the fridge. And so those seeds per succession, I'm estimating how many I'm going to pull off and estimating yield and things and using my own experience to calculate some of those things. So we should do a yield video. That will be my next video. Promise. What else did I do in the last couple weeks? The square footage per succession. I just calculated the same way I did so I calculated the square footage for my desired plants with the square footage requirement per plant. I multiplied those together to get a total foot requirement for the year, right? So corn, for example, if I want 100 plants of corn, I need 600 square feet total throughout the year dedicated to corn. And the square footage required per succession, of course, for corn is 600 because I'm doing one succession. And essentially I did that by dividing total footage by succession count. But once we get down here into cutting lettuce, you'll see, right, that I have 2 successions. My total square footage is 66 feet for the whole year. But because I'm doing 2 successions, I only need 33-ish feet dedicated at a given point per succession. So I can use that accordingly. Because then when I'm looking at my whole garden in these two, right, these down here, so I measured out my garden space that I want to make my garden in down here. I will make it a different color. So that is my garden space. I have 1,200-ish feet. And so I added up all the square footage that I needed for the desired plants that I wanted. And if I didn't do any successions at all, I would run out of space. How do I know that? I added all of these things up in this row, and I got 1,300 feet, just over 1,300 feet, which is over 1,200 feet. So I obviously either need to change what I'm growing, grow less, or get a bigger garden in. And I'm not getting a bigger garden in. And I don't want to change what I'm growing. So what I did instead, considering that I'm growing things like carrots, radish, lettuce, things that I can grow in succession rather than for the full season where I'm at, I divided that up into appropriate successions throughout the year. And these are rough numbers currently. But I end up actually with about half. So the highlighted half down here is all stuff that I'm planting in succession. And so I actually cut by planting in succession and dedicating separate times to the entire desired plants that I wanted. So if I want like baby salad spinach, I wanted 50 plants total. But if I do 2 successions instead of 1, I end up cutting that square footage in half. And I did that because I know how I want to grow those things. We'll talk about yield, and we already talked about spacing, but we'll talk about yield here in a minute in another video. Cut my square footage in half, at least for a lot of these. Some of these were quartered, actually, for the carrots. And so I actually ended up shaving off 200 feet from the square footage that I need continuously throughout the year. Because I'm not really going to overlap successions. And even if I do overlap a touch, I will have like 100, 200 feet of wiggle room in my garden for things like 100, 200 feet of wiggle room for things like rows, walkways, uh, walkways, uh, like baby seed starting, greenhouse supplies, stuff like that, which helps quite a bit. So, without further ado, I'm going to jump into my next video. I will talk to you in a minute. I hope this was helpful. I feel like I rambled quite a bit in this one. So, feel free to call me out. Let me know how it went for you. Alrighty. Have a great day.